Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome to this week's Middle East Update. It's the week of February 13th, and we'll look back on the events that have transpired over this week. We begin with a request and just always a time to never forget and to remember the hostages. But before we jump into this theme of never forgetting, let me just call to mind what has transpired over close to now 500 days. On October 7th, 2023, there were 1,200 Israelis that were killed. There were countless rapes. There were babies burned. There was, some say, over 600 beheadings. There was the largest kidnappings in history, 251 kidnappings. We can never forget. October 7th, 2023. In light of that, the events that are taking place today, by the way, I should have mentioned earlier, grab the PDF PowerPoint. Okay, it should just be a link on this YouTube page. I'm on the slide right now that has a list of the names of the hostages. And the left-hand side of that's in green, and those are the hostages under the first phase ceasefire agreement that have been released. On the right-hand side, in the white, are those, remember, there were to be 33 that were released. Currently, we have 16 that have been released. One on that right-hand side, the one that you see in the red of Shlomo Mansour, we know that he's no longer living. And so, again, this is just a reminder. These are names. And I hope that they jog your memory to be praying. Unfortunately, on the next slide, where everybody's in yellow except for the red, and the red denotes that this person has died, are the list of now close to a total of 60 that are still within captivity. And we don't know here those that are alive or those that are dead. But again, I wanted to give you a list of names that you can see, and I wanted to remind you of those statistics of what happened, because everything that's going on right now, whether it's Gaza or whether it's the hostages, all point back to this particular day. We must never forget. Now, the phase one update, again, in this next slide, you'll see 17 photos. We know that there are only 8 of these 17 that are yet to be under phase one released. Only 8 are still alive. You'll see the Bibas family. We do not know. We don't have that information. And everybody, in a sense, is waiting on pins and needles to see the names of people that will be released this weekend, but more to come about that. So that's just looking back. We now kind of go into our news bites time. And as you probably know by now, pins and needles, we're on the verge. We've been on the verge of an explosion, and it seems to be getting more and more serious. It's Thursday. I have no idea what's going to transpire on Saturday. It can be nothing. It can be simply that Hamas is going to release 3. Trump has basically said, we want them all, or there's going to be hell to pay. Bibi's fluctuating back and forth. Security councils are meeting. Listen, we don't know. We don't know what's going to transpire. Hamas is playing with the emotions and the heartstrings of Israelis. Again, they make stuff up. You know, we're not going to release the hostages because of violations to the ceasefire agreement. You have not sent enough fill in the blanks. No. If you learn nothing else, know this: there's no way in the world you can trust anything that this terrorist organization has to say. So, Israeli hostages are supposed to be released on Saturday. One of the things that we're finding from those that have been released is they're giving signs of life to the families of those list of names, whether they're in the white or in the yellow. People haven't heard, they don't know from October 7th, but they're starting to get signs of life. Again, great, but keep in mind, this is still part of the terrorist scheme to mess with your mind and to mess with your emotions. And then one last thing that popped up just today is that U.S. intelligence officers, or officials, I should say, are warning that Israel may take advantage of Iran's weaknesses in terms of their air defense. And the assessment is that sometime before the midpoint of this year, the U.S. believes that Israel will strike the nuclear facilities of Iran. So, tuck that one away. Okay, so that's our news bites. As I mentioned now, Hamas earlier in the week said, we're not releasing anybody, that's it. That's what caused Trump's comments and really everything taking place in Israel today with Security Council, the right, the left, Bibi or whatever. But Hamas now has caved in terms of that. So the sources that are coming out now are saying that it's expected that at least 3 Israeli hostages from that list of phase 1 will be released on Saturday at noon. Bibi has gone on. Trump has said we want them all, or there's hell to pay. Bibi said no, we want 9. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if the world will be satisfied with 3 being released, because that was the agreement of phase 1 of the ceasefire. We don't know. But the reality is that we don't have that list of names yet. But because there's only 6 that are alive, soon coffins and body bags will be those that are so-called released. What created all this stir was last week when Eli and Or and OHAD were released. We were shocked to see how extremely thin and frail they were. It looked like they were barely able to walk. They seemed to be very unsteady on their feet. And this visual, again, shocked the world. And if there ever was a before and after, we've included that in some of our slides that you can see the before and after photos. Truly, this is reminiscent of Holocaust survivors when rescued, to see their condition. So this is what caused the stir. And the question is, and by the way, I've included some of the slides. That's why, again, make sure you get this PowerPoint. I've shown a slide of the 3 of them where they were kept in captivity in the terror tunnels. We're told that they were given, for the most part, about a quarter of a piece of pita per day to eat. So again, I wanted these visuals to be in your mind, that you can see the horrific conditions that they were kept in, and the desire to show fear and terror. And so the question then is that why did Hamas parade these ultra thin hostages and even publish their photos from the tunnels? And the bottom line, and it's worked, by the way, the bottom line was to shock everyone and to sow division within Israel and push the left to demand the return of all the remaining hostages, no matter what the costs may be, to pull upon the heartstrings, to poke the wound and create this sense of we've got to do whatever it takes to get them all out. And again, for Hamas, that simply means so that we can somehow stay in power. And so what's going to happen, as I mentioned before, Saturday at noon, Israel time, we're going to have to wait and see. You have the right and the left. The left, no doubt, is willing to do anything. And if it were your kids or your parents, you would too, my guess. The harsh reality is that if all hell breaks loose and if Israel goes back to war, the fate of the hostages, I think, will be sealed. I think it'll be the nail in the coffin. I don't think any of those hostages will get out alive. The debate, however, is if that has to happen, and it's the only way for us to completely remove and destroy Hamas, is that worth the price? And that's the debate that's going on internally in Israel today. The right, Bezalel Smotrich, new proposal before the Knesset. I think it's interesting. He says it's got Trump's backing, but he said he's proposing that for every hostage that's harmed in captivity, that Israel would annex 5% of the Gaza Strip. And basically for each casualty, hostage, physically, mentally, whatever it may be, that they would impose this 5% annexation of the Gaza Strip. In addition to this, Smotrich came out and said, now for those now numbering in the hundreds of terrorists that we've released, some with blood on their hands, he's called on the IDF to actively search out and rearrest every Palestinian terrorist that was freed during part of this Hamas negotiated deal. He says we need to notify Hamas the moment we return to war, and we need to rearrest all the terrorists whom we released. I've always wondered, I know they put a bracelet on them saying we'll never forget and that sort of stuff, but I've always wondered if they're tagged in some way. Interesting. But again, this is from the right. And then we have our new Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who's in the Middle East at this particular time, and he's warned that Israel cannot allow Hamas to use the ceasefire to rearm. And so he's giving clear indications and signals that soon and very soon, if not this weekend, there will be a potential resuming of military operations in the Gaza with the U.S.'s full support. And without using these phrases, I think shock and awe come to mind. If Israel goes back to war with Hamas, the handcuffs are off. And I think Israel has the capacity to do what needs to be done to obtain their goals of making sure that Hamas is never again the threat that they've been. So that's our report for this week. Within this PowerPoint, there are some additional things. Up here in northern Idaho, we will be hosting a Mirsafate July 1st, 6 to 8 o'clock at Lake City Church. That's the venue. Tickets are available on our website. If you're local or in the area, this is an evening you will not want to miss. Again, for those that are local or for those that you follow us with our old-fashioned Bible study and our Middle East update and those things on YouTube, on April 1st, we're going to begin a new study. If you're local, join us. Join us online if you're not, but we're going to make our way through. We're going to take 3 months to go through the book of Revelation. So we're opening that up. If you're in the area and you'd like to be a part, I've given you my email. Make sure you send me an email. We'll reserve a seat for you. And then finally, our last official Holy Ground tour that we call The Land, the People of, and the King will be October 30th through November 9th. Sharon and I leave in less than 2 weeks for The Land, the People, and the King for the spring, and we'll be gone for about a month. And so all of our YouTube productions and that sort of thing will just be PDFs at that point in time because we don't record while we're in Israel. But if you got an inkling, if you want the experience, circle these dates. Let us know. The Land, the People, the King, October 30th, November 9th. Join us. That's it for this particular week. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the release of the hostages. Look over that list of names and each day pull at least one out and lift them up to Jesus. And may Jesus set the captives free. God bless you and shalom.